Hey, everybody, thank you for joining us. And today, I don't know if he's next to me or above me in the recording, but I have the inimitable Kirk Thatcher. Thank you, Kirk, for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's been a long time. You have been a driving force behind our line of maquettes and replicas and things like that, helping us research and figure
Oh
this stuff
yeah.
out.
Well, it's because I have the youngest brain there. It's sad, as old as it is now.
I, I
But
mean, I
yeah,
wasn't
you
going to
got a
say.
couple things that stumped me. I'm like, oh God, who was that? Usually it was like Dan Howard because
Yes.
like he didn't do a lot. He did a couple. I mean, I could talk for 10 minutes about that particular aspect of Jedi because it was very early
Yeah,
in the
let's do it. I
process.
mean, that's obviously it's a fascination for us and our fans have been, we're oh gosh, 20 or 30 maquettes deep now. So yeah,
Yeah,
let's go for it.
you're scraping the barrel. And
So we
with
barely scratched the surface. There's so many left.
Well, it thrills me that it's that Smithsonian magazine cover. I think that
Yes.
got Apple Slug its infamy.
Yeah.
So I had just started. So it was around March of '81 is when I
Mhm.
started. I just had my 19th birthday, uh, and my first job was setting up the new creature shop during the day, which was literally like I was on a scaffolding with an airless sprayers painting the walls and setting up metal shelving to store. So it was like really grunt work. But at night in the old creature shop, was a room about the size of a two-car garage upstairs at Kerner,
Was that what they called the rubber room?
the rubber room, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was funny. I mean, a little backtracking. I had visited 2 years earlier was it? No, just a year earlier, the summer of '80. I graduated high school, and my brother and I and my three best friends who grew up next door to us, we did a road trip. We stayed at Yosemite, went to San Francisco, and part of it was going to go visit ILM because I was friends with Joe Johnston, which is I think I've told that story enough. Um, so it was on a Saturday, and Joe said he would let us in. I remember I was driving, and I was so frustrated because there was no sign. There was no ILM. We kept driving up and down, and there's just this industrial building. So I'm like, I literally just like went to a payphone and said, Joe, I don't know where it is. There's no. I gave me the address, but I can't even find an address. And
What,
yeah,
you
just
didn't look up the map on your phone or text
yeah,
him?
exactly. This was back in the day of what was it Thomas guides.
Oh
So
gosh.
he said, yeah, no, it doesn't look like anything. Look for Kerner Optical, and I'm like, okay. And he said it's on a little sign. So found it on the door. He let us in, and that was a great day. And one of the things I did was I brought this rubber monster this creature I'd made for a student film in my senior year for a buddy student film. Actually, it was this big fat goblin-y demon thing. It had glass eyes and horns, and we'd done it. It was supposed to be this demon in charge of someone who'd gone to hell, and so I'd given that as like, I don't know, I was a weird kid, right? I mean, I've learned now autism and ADHD run thick in my blood. So I was like, here, I made this. Like, I don't know. Like, what do you give Joe Johnson? I mean, I didn't even meet any of the creature guys. It's like, I
Yeah.
made this. I basically, I guess, thought here's a portfolio piece.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Smart.
so yeah, I mean, there's a leave behind, as they used to call it. So, got the
Mm.
tour, went back home, started UCLA, and I called Joe after one semester of university at UCLA. They wouldn't even. I wanted to be a film student, but they wouldn't let you touch a camera for 2 more years. And I've been making Super 8 movies since I was 10 or 12.
Right.
So I called him up. I said, "Look," because he'd given me a tour back when it was in Van Nuys where I grew up. I said, "Hey, I college isn't really pushing my buttons. I will come up and live in my car and make coffee and sweep and do stuff." And he said, "Who did you talk to?" This was literally like a Tuesday. I remember it pretty well. And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Who told you?" I said, "Who told me what?" He said, "Well, I put your name on a list for people they should interview for the creature shop on Jedi." I'm like, "What?" I said, "Nobody told me. I just got this thing. I should call you." And he's like, "Well, that's weird." And he literally done it like that Monday. So it was like a Tuesday, and he'd done it the day before. And he thought I didn't. He was the only person I knew there. So anyway, once in a while I have these great psychic premonitions to do something.
Yeah.
So I went up, had an interview with Tom Smith. Oh, well, nice to meet you. We became friends actually later. Well, during the time, but worked together on Muppet Treasure Island actually. He was our effects soup. And met Chris Walas and Ken Ralston. They took me out to lunch. They showed me around and told me I was an idiot. I mean, Chris Walas, Chris, he's like, God, you're an idiot. We're like best friends, but the beginning was, don't be an idiot. You can get a UCLA education.
Right. And you're coming here?
This business is terrible. And yeah, Ken Ralston is probably the grumpiest guy I ever met. I mean, incredibly nice guy, but just like, oh God, no, don't. It's terrible, horrible business. You don't want to. So they really did their best to try and talk me out of it. I was just like, hey, guys.
Right.
Yeah, right. Like, it's terrible.
Nice
like,
try. Yeah.
It took me 25 years to realize how terrible it could be. But
I
got the job. And again, I'm like, I'm going to make creatures. And no, for about 2 months, I was painting walls and putting together metal shelving and completely.
You were painting the fence and sanding the floor and waxing.
Exactly. All by myself, no help. Yeah. Because they didn't hire anyone else at that point. I mean, Phil was.
Why would they? They had this kid.
Phil was finishing Dragon Slayer. Chris had just left. He was going to co-run it with Phil, and I guess he went and started his own company. So at night, I would go to the rubber room with Tommy Santamond, who became a dear friend, and we would sit there and do these little, Sculpey maquettes. And, there were some that Phil had done for the Tauntauns, and there was already one of the Jabba sculpts. Maquettes were there, and so I'd seen a few, so I kind of got the drill. You just basically take a little piece of wood, 2x4, paint it black, put some armature wire, and just start sculpting whatever you want. There was the only input we've been given is it's a party. There's a party, a bunch of aliens, and he wants it to make the cantina scene look like, the dumbest, not the dumbest, but like just 10 times what the cantina was.
Yeah, cantina scene on steroids.
Yes, on steroids. Yeah, exactly. So I started doing. So I didn't know anything. I thought, well, I'm a gag guy. I mean, when I draw, I always think of personality or a gag or a bit that this thing would do. So Apple Slug, which is, I guess, what we're supposed to talk about.
Yeah. That's
based on a gag of like there would be a guy walking by with a tray of canopies or fruit or something, and this thing would just look like a mossy green rock, and it would suddenly these arms would pop out, lift up this big flabby skin, unveiling this like veiny skull with like musculature, and this huge tongue would roll out. It would pierce the food and like it was basically Slimer before Slimer existed.
Yeah,
it's funny actually. I've been drawing him and going like, oh my God, he's Slimer with spider legs. I mean, but again, Slimer didn't exist. So great minds think alike. And so that was the gag, and that was it. And I did two others. There's a guy in a vat. There's a tank, and there's this big kind of purpley, I don't know what you call it, like a walrus meets a manta ray sort of thing. And there's another skinny creature drinking out of the back of it with a straw, and it has like a shower head on it, like he could douse himself with whatever nasty liquid he was in. And so those two were kind of complicated, and Phil was like, "Well, just do something that's like a mask, like that's a lot."
Right.
And do so. I made what Joe Johnston nicknamed Hamilton Beach, but I think you guys call him Whole Head or
hole in the head alien.
Hole in the head, yeah. Well, Joe thought he looked like an old Hamilton Beach blender or a mixer where you have
like a stand
handle mixer. And then you put the two. Yeah. So those are the three I got to do. And Tommy and I would just sit there while we're sculpting, because you would kind of design it, play around with it, and then sculpt it, and then bake it, and then paint it, and add details. So it wasn't like you did it in a day. They were a couple, 2 or 3 days each.
Yeah.
And Tommy and I would just talk gibberish. One of the coins of the realm back then was naming old character actors and knowing their name, like doing an impression of them,
right?
And knowing who they were. And one of my favorites was Eugene Paulette, who plays the father in my man Godfrey. Many times like this. So we would talk about old character actors, and then Tommy and I would just make up stupid names. And we're not even looking at each other. We're just doing Flip Flapkin, Snip Snopkin, Bumpus Magoogle Bombs, and just laugh. And we weren't even high. We're just kids on the spectrum. So we just crack each other up with names. So some of those names became character names, at least.
I mean, Pote Snitkin sounds an awful lot like Snip Plotkin there. Or
Snip
whatever.
Plotkin, yeah. Well, Snip Plotkin was one of the Tommy names.
Uh-huh.
Uh, yeah, we were just goofing around. A lot of them had names that we named them, which, I mean,
Yeah.
Squid Head
Oh
and
yeah.
was Akbar and then became Mon. And then George. So we had like 80, 90 of these maquettes,
Yeah,
and they
there's
were
a
all laid
lot.
out on the table. Yeah, and we're all kind of standing around the perimeter of this room, and George came in full of life. George just kind of comes in like, hey, okay. And he would literally, it was like, look at one. I remember he picked up Apple Slug and the guy in the tank, and he was like, oh, that's fun. And then put it down. He goes, but it's too complicated. I'm like, oh.
Oh.
So he did like it at least.
Yeah.
And he went around. He kind of started putting, I think, green stickers on ones he wanted us to make.
Yeah, I think they're actually red stickers or like an orangey red, but yeah,
Maybe
there's
it was red, yeah, but like
yeah,
a sticker went on the ones that we were going
yeah.
to build.
Because you
And
can
then
even
that
see
was,
those stickers in some of the books and the behind the scenes photos.
oh,
I think
okay.
some of them still.
Still
Uh,
on there. Yeah, they're just little like things you would do for filing stuff.
yeah.
These are early days. They didn't have the Lucasfilm filing system.
Yeah.
And so then I guess they photographed them, and then we had to figure out how we were going to build them. And the cane heads, we call them. I don't know. They're like two, like,
Yeah.
I don't know what did they end up being called, or do they have retcon names?
Cane Addis, I think, is
Cane Addis, that's
technically
right. They were cane heads, is what we call them,
yeah.
because they look like two. Yeah.
Yeah. No, they're awesome. And is that so? Were you aware that Tom had to sculpt those twice because he burned them the first time?
Oh, the Sculpey, yeah. Well, that was
Yeah.
a trick, especially because they were so thin. If your
Yeah.
Sculpey had little fingers and stuff, so sometimes we learned to bake teeth and horns on little details, bake them first,
Mhm.
and then put the socket for it, and then bake the bigger piece, and then just glue them in. But yeah,
That's so
yeah,
that's the stuff you learn along the way.
yeah, exactly. Sculpey was tricky back then. It's gotten a lot, and then Fimo, I guess, but it was pretty. You could crack it if it would burn and turn black, and yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't horrible. Actually, it was pretty amazing. Like an entire
I-
process was built around the fact that we could do that, before.
yeah. And it's funny because a lot of times you have movies where they make maquettes and they're doing them in oil clay or they're
Right.
doing them in water clay, and then a couple of
Yeah.
years later everything just crumbles.
It crumbles,
So the
yeah.
fact that you guys chose that actually is why this stuff is still
Well,
around.
I think that's why, because we're not that we thought, 30 years from now, nerds will be buying them up.
Right.
I use nerds
Obviously.
lovingly as a diehard nerd myself.
Yeah.
Um, no, but I think it was just like they'll last. Like some of them had to be shipped to London, like the
Right.
job.
Yeah,
Actually,
you
I think
couldn't
Java
ship an oil clay
yeah,
Java to
no, right.
London.
And also, I think we knew they had to last somewhat because Phil had done for the Tauntauns, which when I
Oh.
first moved up there, I called them Towntowns because I didn't know they never.
Yeah,
I got
they didn't say it in the movie.
they don't say it in the movie.
No,
So I
I
was
guess
like,
they do. There is one like, we'll have to go out on tauntauns. Yeah, right before Han's going to see you in hell.
right. Only a nerd would
Nerd.
know that.
Yeah.
See it out, kid. So yeah, so we made them so they'd last, and also Phil had done these half heads for Empire. I don't know if you've seen those where it was a
Oh
different
yes.
sculpt on each side, which was pretty cool. But that was for a very specific scripted character. Where the only scripted characters that existed, and I didn't see obviously we weren't privy to scripts, but were
Right.
Jabba, Bib Fortuna,
Right.
and I think there was a like
Maybe
most
Akbar, or was that even?
no, that was the character was there, but George would pick the maquette based on what he knew of the script. Because I don't
Right.
even know if Phil saw the script.
Yeah.
He must have seen something, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean the whole band was just George saying this guy would be funny playing, the keyboards and this guy.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, that was all George kind of wedging them in because we weren't given a script or even a character name except Java. That was the only one. And I think even Ralph and even Joe had done. It was sort of like Yoda. Like he was,
Right. Yeah. There was some intent behind Java.
right. And so Phil had done, and I think Ralph McQuarrie had done some sketches of what Jabba was. And at one point, he was this four-armed kind of, what was the name from Flash Gordon? Ming the Merciless. And then there was kind of a big sluggier one, and then Jabba,
Yeah.
the one
With all the feet
Jabba.
and everything tripping off, just absolutely horrible in the best
So
way.
I met Wesley Seeds and I molded the one that was picked because
Oh yeah.
that had to be sent to London, and we didn't even trust the Sculpey to last. Just finish
Yeah, yeah.
that. So we cast that in a two-part.
That final one is a beautiful sculpt, and it is funny because there's a few copies of it out there, and the one in the archive still has the actual wood base, and the other
Yeah,
ones had resin bases, but all the
right,
same grain. So it's like, oh, okay,
right.
someone made a mold here,
Yeah, that was Wesley and I just did this one-piece silicone mold where you just the
like a
bottom of it
dump.
became, yeah, just dump mold. It was essentially we built a box around it and poured the
Yeah.
silicone in, and then Phil painted it. So that was the design phase, which maybe lasted 2 months because we had to ship everything by the end of the year. So let's say March, April, May. Yeah, so by like end of May, this is what we're building. Yeah, yeah,
Can I
exactly.
ask something about the George
No, no
coming through?
questions.
Oh, all
No
right. Oh man, never
questions.
mind.
No photos. Yeah, of course.
No questions. Go away, kid.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, so, George coming through, uh, you know, maybe, and maybe this is more for you because I know, like Ken talks about it as not being particularly nerve wracking. That he was sort of already in this mindset of like I believe Ken said it wasn't, oh my God, it's George Lucas because it was just George at the time.
It was
Your
just
pressure
George.
from that was it, or was it just anticipation and hope for yourself?
It was that. It wasn't like, oh God, George is here. Like everyone, look,
Straighten up, boys.
yes, the captain's here, straighten up. And no, it was just Lord, more like, oh shit, is he going to pick? It was
Yeah,
more like the high school play. Like, am I going to get picked for
right.
man in elevator number 3 or the second lead?
Come on,
So
Apple Slug. Come on,
that
Apple
no,
Slug.
George would just walk down the hallways and kind of a very unassuming character. I mean, you knew what he looked, he had a singular look, but
Yeah.
there was never like this weight around his presence. He was always very approachable. I mean, walk by and say, "Hey, George," and like, "Hey, guys," it was just, and I think he liked that. George was not, he leads from behind kind of thing. At least my impression was he was very not. All right, men, here's what we're gonna do. It's like he wouldn't come in and go, "What are you thinking?" He's like, "Yeah, I don't." And talking with Doug Chang, who I've known since college,
Hmm.
he would just say George had these stamps. It was like, thumbs
Yeah.
up, do more like this, or no, or thumbs down, something like that. It was basically very, very simple. It's like,
Yeah.
do more of this. I like this. Maybe this is not the right direction. So,
And the rare, I believe it was a Fabuloso stamp, is
oh,
the
really?
rare,
Yeah.
like,
Well,
oh, if
that would
you
be the,
got that.
yeah, I like that. So, but these days it was just George would come in and kind of go like, the little red thing, and that was it. So then we
Uh-huh.
had to make the things, and we had to figure out like, well, George said Akbar is going to be Akbar. Well, we called him Squidhead, or I think. And then, okay, so he's got dialogue. So then Stuart Ziff became very involved in the mechanics. And
Hmm.
Mike, we had 3 Mikes, like Mike McAllister, Mike. It wasn't McAllister. It was one of the other Mike who was did a lot, worked with Stuart. Stuart's kind of the electronics and engineering. This other guy was more just actually the manufacturing of the mechanics.
Hmm.
And Evan Stromquist.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, those were kind of our mechanical team
Right.
for taking the characters that were going to be talking and have dialogue, like Niem Nub. I think we called him Mousehead or something. When he got named Niem Nub, we called him Numbnuts. He was a hand puppet. Again, a lot of people don't know that he was a rubber
Yeah.
mask, but a hand puppet. So we had to make the eye blinks. There's a picture. One of the few pictures I have of me behind the scenes is when we were testing him, where I'm sitting in a director's chair, like leaning back,
Yeah.
during the head, and Tony McVeigh is working the cable eyes. When we're just doing testing, which I always tease Mike.
Oh, Quinn.
Actually, Mike Quinn, who puppeteered him, I said, "No, I did it first. Mike just did." Mike did him. Uh, so yeah, so then we just started making these things, and essentially, I had 2 major uh, purviews, which was molding and casting with Wesley, and then I set up the paint booth and ran the paint room. So I painted pretty much any character except like any character was just a one-off, like Salacious.
Hmm.
Uh, we only made one. What was his name? Max Rebo.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
so those I would just mix the paint, and then Phil said, I want more of a pink to go with the blue or something, and I'd help him with
Hmm.
that. But all the stunt heads that were doubles and all the there's a picture of me. I think probably the
With all
picture.
the Akbar guys.
I painted all of them except for Akbar himself. Phil did that, and then just said, "Give me a you know a range." So I
Yeah.
did. And there's one who's all lemon yellow, more like a tropical fish. Yeah.
I love that one. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. So I got a lot of free reign for particularly a 19-year-old kid who,
That's amazing.
basically
Yeah.
mostly right out of high school. But because I was self-taught, I'd done all that. In fact, I nobody else had painted rubber masks to that extent, and they hadn't done the rubber cement thinner thing. They were like, "Oh,
Oh
okay,
yeah,
well,
yeah, yeah.
that's why this is your thing because you've done it," which is great.
Yeah.
So, and I had color theory and all that. I knew how to mix
Right.
colors and match because very often I was given the maquette and say, "Paint that." Like this tiny
Right.
little acrylic maquette, but do it with this rubber cement paint that I
Yeah.
mixed up from all the
Which is
universal.
easier said than done. That
Well, yeah,
translation
you have to
you
have
can
an
always
eye for
take.
like how do I match this because didn't come in oil paints. There were things called universal painting tints,
Oh
which
yeah.
is what all the paint companies use. They basically make a light base and a dark base, and you mix these different amounts of these probably 40 colors to create
Right.
every kind of exterior house paint that exists. And
Yeah.
so I was just using those in various. Usually, I would mix them straight. This is really deep in the weeds for people who care, but there were these mason jars with about I think it was like half rubber cement or maybe two-thirds rubber cement, an entire tube of the one color, and then some thinner. And that was the base that you would then thin out to paint. You could make it pretty opaque, or you could thin it out a lot and make it
Mm,
more of a translucent wash. And that's how they were all painted. And it worked on both latex and foam latex. So
that's great.
great, yeah.
I
So that was, and then finishing. So because the rubber cement is sticky, and again, this is something I made up. No one taught me. I would brush them on with a thinned version of essentially industrial strength coconut oil soap, which we would get in these. Yeah, you'd go to like the hardware store and you want 5 gallons of soap, and
right.
it was just I forgot. It's like hydrogenated coconut oil or some weird thing. And it would just, and then you'd thin it and it would just leave a light film. So I'd just brush it on, let it dry. You'd throw maybe a little baby powder on if it had foam latex like eyelids or something, because that would get really sticky and
Yeah, and
crazy.
they could gum up.
Yeah. So then you'd brush that on, let it dry, and then dust a little of that and then blow it off. And that's how they were finished. After you would do an acrylic knockdown washes, pretty, we had a saying that I think Phil Tippett, I think I'm quoting him saying, was it raw umber is the color of monsters. So we
Yes.
just take raw umber acrylic at this point, so it would just
Yeah.
kind of get the nooks and crannies and kind of stain over the rubber cement. It would also
It's
help protect it. It was another coat,
yeah.
but it would just do these washes to kind of knock it down and dirty around the mouths and the eyes or wherever
It
you
just
think
makes it like it lived.
lives in the world.
Like
Yeah,
it's a
because this
real
was
thing all of a sudden.
one of the things I loved about Star Wars from the first one. It was a lived-in universe. It was not Buck Rogers. The aliens weren't perfect. In fact, it still bugs me when guys are doing alien sculpt and it's perfectly symmetrical and it looks like the
Oh
guy
yeah.
sculpted it. It doesn't look like it walked out of a cave.
Right.
So that's I mean, I still think that Phil Tippett and Chris Walas are two of the best creature designers I mean, Chris's Gremlin is still one of the most
Oh my
original
God.
designs.
Yeah.
And what Phil does is steal from reality. He's like an encyclopedia of animal anatomy.
Yeah.
And one of the things I learned from him, which works really well, is put a little pinkish red around eyelids and mouths, even if they're green or blue,
Yeah.
because it denotes soft tissue where the blood
Yeah.
would be. And it just makes it look real to human
It
eyes because
implies life. Yeah, it
right,
really does.
right,
It's like putting a little wetness around lips
right,
and lids and stuff. Like
right,
it just all of
exactly.
a sudden it implies something's going on. Or
Right. Even Max Rebo, who was we called him Red Ball Jet, but he was
yes,
yeah, the guy didn't have legs. He got
as
it all blown
blue
up.
as he is, yeah, still has some pink in his
There's
fingers,
shading in pink. Yes, exactly. Too.
the
Yeah, yeah,
tips of his little fingers and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, yeah.
I
So that
always
was
like getting a little like anytime you have like a real hard wrinkle or something like that, getting a little red in the group, make it look angry, you
yep.
know?
And that was
But
yeah. And also like yeah, like it moves and cracks and bleeds and
yeah,
so
yeah,
Phil, I learned that by us, but Phil never sat me down and said here's what you do. You just kind of I was a big sponge.
yeah.
And just kind of soaked that stuff up and went, oh, that's why it looks so good. And then all his stuff looks weathered and isn't symmetrical. So
It feels so real, yeah. And there's no um uh it's nothing's a direct copy. There's tons of inspiration, but he's
right,
he's not bound by anything normal. He is very open to, going outside the box. I think he once said, um, it's like when you're afraid of something, so it just has to be big and scary. Like, you get attacked by a bear, you don't say bear, you say, ah, and that's his whole thing. He just wants that impact out of it.
Right.
Um,
Well, and when I was talking about the Rancor design, which I loved, and it was a little, and I said, "How'd you come with it?" He goes, "I just wanted this head to be a fist." And you think about it, the Rancor's head is a
yeah,
fist with
yeah, very
shoulders and
much.
arms. It's just a fist with a tiny, and it doesn't a giant mouth.
Yeah,
But again, his head is the size
yeah,
of a Volkswagen, but it's
right.
not a big, it's not an alligator, it's just a little meh, meh, meh. But the
But he
head is
does have those powerful jaw muscles
right,
that
right,
look like they function,
right.
implying that danger of it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's such a good design. When you're there, I mean, so you're a kid, you're 19.
yeah, yeah.
This isn't, I mean, this just
I
doesn't
know.
happen for people.
I know. I mean, people are like, "Who was your father? Who did you know?" I'm like, "I met Joe Johnson when I was 15. That was it." And
it's
the thing is, I didn't have a social life. I stayed home and I drew monsters and designed monsters and sculpted and painted and molded and cast monsters
you
and
know,
made model kits and knew about movies and green screen and blue screen and what an optical printer was. So, I mean, I was kind of genetically engineering myself to do that kind of work.
yeah, yeah.
One of my
What could you have done otherwise? Like, what would have happened if you didn't do this?
Oh God, it's funny. I probably would have like been an illustrator or something, which I didn't have the patience for, or
Hmm.
the skill. I like drawing and painting, but I do not have the skill to just work at it until it's perfect. I get frustrated fast. What I loved about creature making is it involves 12 different disciplines. So I'm
Mm,
never bored. I'm literally thinking about like, well, beginning with design idea, and then how am I going to, it might be oil clay, water clay, life
right?
size and miniature, and then it's like molding, casting, painting. How is it going to move? Then is it
Is it the
mechanics?
mechanics? Yeah.
Yes, and then the color. And is it going to be puppeteer, stop motion? Is it going to be both? So all of that kept my busy squirrel in a cage ADHD brain.
Uh-huh.
I never got frustrated with doing something for too much and then the pressure of the film business, that's the other thing. You've
Mm.
got to just there's no like, let's sit back and think about it. One of the other things I learned from Phil and here, and then I worked with him again on RoboCop 2 is he's not a guy who sits around and does a bunch of designs and theory. He just starts making something. Like
Yeah.
even if it's just this is the bad thing, but it'll educate the process or what the character is. So kind of jumping in with both feet and going, all right, let's just start making it.
Hmm.
And whether that's hammering a bunch of stuff together and putting chicken wire and paper, whatever, it was such a great thing for me to learn because I was more like, well, let's sit down, I'll draw it, I'll imagine it, I'll think about it because
Right.
I'm very well. Obviously, Phil's visual, but I was kind of more like I like to sit in a comfortable chair and with
Or the
the
pipe.
pipe.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'd be like, I wonder if it has should yellow teeth or maybe an off blue, and it's like, no. So I loved that, and again, that was kind of again by osmosis, watching Phil work and seeing how he, yeah, would just jump in and I
Sometimes
said,
it's
well, let's do
easier
something.
to edit and evolve than it is to create outright. And
Well, and it is creating outright. That's the thing. There's no you can sit and plan and everything, but until you're actually making it, you're not going to know.
yeah,
Especially again, drawing something if it's going to be animated or CG, you have a lot more leeway because it doesn't have to exist in the real world. Someone asked what
right.
was the hardest thing about the creature making on anything but Jedi. Particularly, I said physics because
The march of time.
yeah, and latex and what you can do with it and how you make it do that and all that. So
Yeah.
I mean, I was a 19-year-old kid. I was too stupid or too happy to kind of stop and go, I was just,
Right.
I mean, I literally put myself, well, I didn't go to the hospital, but I almost put myself in the hospital just working so hard and getting urethane poisoning and mono at the same time.
Oh my
So I
God.
was supposed to go to London and I got too sick.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so Phil's like, no, fuck you, you're staying home. I was like, no,
And somebody had to look out for the kid.
yeah, exactly.
Was Phil always doing that for you? Do you feel like he was,
But not
took you under his
in a
wing? Or?
very it's funny. So Phil was never, hey buddy, how are you? But well, this is an example. I got really really sick and I remember the day I went to work I was hallucinating in my shower before I got to work. I was imagining cartoon characters flying around me, like really flying like
Right.
cartoon characters.
Not like your normal average day, but like
Yeah,
this time
where
for
I would
real.
imagine them, but they didn't actually see them in my shower with me.
Right.
And I remember going, "That's funny," and I was just so out of it. And I went to work, and I think I was white as a ghost. And I'm walking like this, and I'm like,
Uh-huh.
"Hey, Phil," and he's like, "What the fuck's wrong with you?" I'm like, "What?" I'm just tired." He goes, "You look like shit." I'm like, "I just need some coffee." So he watched me for about 10 minutes, and he came back up and he goes, "You're sick." And I'm like, I'll be okay." He goes, "No, you go home." I said, "No, no, this is literally like the last push." And he goes, "Go home now." I'm like, "No, no, I can do it." He goes, "If you don't go home right now, I'm going to fire you." That's the only way he could get me to leave. Talking about a kid who was, and
Right.
it was a tough love, It was like,
It
"Oh,
was. It
fire
was
you."
what you needed.
And he wasn't joking. He wasn't kidding in that kind of way. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I went home and then I was out for 2 weeks. I lost like 25 pounds,
Oh my
and I
God.
wasn't as big. I think I
Yeah, you
played.
were not a big burly guy
No,
back then.
I was like 185. I went down to like 160.
Wow.
I mean, I didn't look skeletal. Maybe I was 200, went down to 185, but I lost like 15, 20 pounds.
Wow.
And yeah, I was out of it. I was in not a coma, but like in a fever for a
Mhm.
long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Luckily, I called my parents and said something's wrong, and they drove up the next day and stayed with me for like 10, 12 days.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
yeah, yeah. And I don't remember any of it. Yeah, it was
Oh
crazy.
man.
But then I was fine. I look at pictures of me like, God, I look great. It was all healthy and got it all out of
Look
my
how
system.
trim I
Yeah,
look. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
We've talked about Phil, talked a bit about Ken. Chris Wayless has called you an idiot a few times along the way.
Idiot. Well, he called everybody an idiot, but he was also my best friend, and we went fishing every weekend. So yeah,
all right.
I mean, that's kind of what I was getting at. I was like, in those days, people calling you an idiot and saying, "God, you're such a dope," and then that was your friend. Like
right.
everyone now is like, you can't say that, even if you mean it lovingly, whatever. Yeah, it's a different
Um,
time.
who else? So,
We're all raised by war veterans, so, like,
I mean, you're not wrong. What about guys like Dave Carson, Tony McVeigh?
all great friends. So Dave, I nicknamed Dave the Grave because he was always very serious. All right, very dry sense. Not an unfunny person, but just very
True.
thoughtful. Like, okay. And I remember one day because I was very garrulous and sociable, and I loved talking to people. He gave me a piece of paper, and he just put it in my pocket. He said, "Take that out every once in a while." And I'm like, okay. So of course, immediately I take it out and says, "Get back to work." um, and I
I'm gonna have
remember
to ask him to make me a couple of those for the shop. I think
yeah,
that's a good move.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I love Dave, and very thoughtful, and one of those polymaths. You could do matte paintings and sculpt and paint, and
Yeah.
really everyone there did 5 jobs. There was no like one job person. I think
Yeah.
probably the most one job person would have been Wesley, who ran the mold room. That was,
Okay.
but I mean, he was obviously a sculptor. He
Yeah. He did Droopy
tons
McCool.
yeah.
And
But Dave, the thing that I remember, or when I started, the Gamorrean guard sculpt had been already done. Like it was a maquette sitting in the old rubber room, and I
Mhm.
loved it. It looked like an orc. In my head, I did when I would draw creatures in
that
my
bust one, we've done a
yes,
replica of it. It's so
yeah. Well,
troll-like. It's
it's got
amazing.
wrinkly throat, and he's beat up, and yeah,
Craggy. Yeah.
yeah, he's very craggy, and it just looks like that was all. And that's kind of how I always imagine orcs. I'm like halfway between a pig and a gorilla.
Yeah.
And so the armor on it and everything was great. And so when he went to sculpt the one for the movie, the full size, he made this smooth, what it is. There's not a lot, just kind of light wrinkles. And I'm like, Dave, what happened? Why are you? And he goes, well, two things. One, it's going to be a toy. So
Oh.
I figured, and I was like, the other things, I wanted to be easier for you to make a mold of. And I was like,
Oh.
fuck you. We can mold wrinkles.
Yeah.
So I don't know which was truer,
Come
whether they
on.
thought, well, it's going to be a toy but anyway, he was like, yeah, I didn't want to be too hard for you to mold. I'm like, Dave. Anyway, he was nice, lovely guy. Tony, I'm still friends with Tony.
Yeah.
So Tony and Mike McCormick,
Hmm.
one of the three Mikes, came
The
over
many
from.
mics of the rubber room.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they really were like 4 or 5 mics at There was Mike Sweeney, Mike McCormick, Mike McAllister. Um, yeah. Anyway, Tony came over with Mike McCormick from Dark
Dark
Crystal.
Crystal. Yeah.
Yeah, he'd been a sculptor and he'd sculpted the walrus and the baboon for Ray Harryhausen. So he had this already this, if you were a movie nerd, kind of a cool career.
Yeah.
And he was just the wonder child. I mean, he sculpted. I remember Efont Mon. He made the plaster and hessian, or what we call sisal fiber, like on a giant. He like whacked together a big frame, essentially out of 2x4s on a rolling platform, covered it in chicken wire plaster and sisal fiber to make kind of the rough
Yep.
shape. And it was based on a platydon, I think it is. It's
Yes.
Phil had designed it.
Another Phil deep cut,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
recesses of the.
Platybelodon, I think.
That's exactly it. Yes.
Yeah, my old nerdy childhood where I just read encyclopedias about ancient monsters was like. Anyway, Tony got the wet clay and started and was done in a day and a half. And
It's
this thing is
insane.
like 8 feet tall,
It's
this
huge.
wide.
Yeah. Yeah. We've
It's huge.
seen
And
the
we're
real
like,
thing.
holy crap, we have to mold this thing. So we did it in just two, because it was basically just a face. There was no,
Right.
yeah, so we could mold it, but we're like,
And then
holy crap.
it's one hand
Yeah,
that you use for both sides, and
right.
it's the same one as Hermiodal. I think had the same hands, just with different paint.
Probably. That's a deep cut that I do
That was something we found at the archives. They pulled out the hands. They're like, wait
Well,
a minute.
we actually we had two hand bucks, I guess you call them, and one or three actually. And one, I think we used Judy Elkin's hands because she had smaller hands, and then
Oh,
I forgot like Stu's for Phil or somebody had bigger hands, and then we did one like this, so
yeah,
we could make 3-fingered. So we had
nice.
all these different hand bucks. So yeah, it was probably used for Hermiodal hemorrhoid. That's how he got that name. His name was Hemorrhoid. Um, he was another one that Tony whacked out really fast.
I love that one. I don't know
Yeah,
why. It's just
he's
good
just
stuff
he
hanging
looks
out of
like
his mouth. I don't know if
he
it's a
looks like a
tongue.
hemorrhoid. He looks like a walking hemorrhoid. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that was another Phil design, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Which kind of makes sense.
Yeah, yes, yes. I mean, you've
You
seen Mad
mentioned.
God. There's like
Yeah.
12
Oh, yeah. He
hemorrhoids.
could totally be in Mad God. Yeah. Like him and
Yeah,
his
yeah.
together.
But Tony was great, very kind of British and I wouldn't say laconic, but again more on the thoughtful side. Now I'm a giant goofball, so most people look thoughtful compared to me. But again, I was giddy every day just being there. Um,
I have this strange feeling. Sorry to interrupt, but like you talk about being this big goofball at 19. It doesn't sound very different from you now. Do you
no,
feel
no,
like
yeah, I probably am maybe 15% less energetic.
all right? Yeah.
Well, I get excited and I have this weird thing again. I just learned I got diagnosis here with ADHD is that you love being around people, you love people, and you're super animated and share way too much and TMI. And then I need like 2 days of like vampire in a dark room with no sound. So
It's the rubber band
everyone,
effect. You know, it's
yeah.
like,
But I mean,
gotta go back.
also I was 19, so I had more energy than a barrel full of hyperactive monkeys,
That's
and
right.
I was just giddy to be there. But Tony became a good friend. We hung out a lot. We were both single guys, where a lot of the guys they were married and have wives and kids to go home to. So actually, Tony and Dave Fincher and I, the director, David
Yeah.
Fincher, we started our own company after Jedi finished. Dave was cameraman for the matte department. We formed a company called the Creative Collective. I found I'm moving, which is why my background is chaos
Uh,
boxes everywhere. I found our stock certificates.
oh wow.
You had to issue stock, and they're
Yeah,
like
back
old,
then. Yeah, yeah, and
like
like
something you would
actual.
frame on the wall. And yeah, it was called the Creative Collective, and it was the idea that the three of us, with our kind of somewhat overlapping but expanded skill set, would be. And I think the first thing that Tony and Dave did was the smoking baby commercial that kind of put Dave on the map, which
Oh
is a
wow. Yeah.
David Fincher cut. And then the three of us did a bunch of Tony specifically worked on a Rick Springfield video that I was a production designer, and Tony sculpted the creatures for it,
Oh, I
um,
remember that.
called a Bop to Drop. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wore the creature, the monster suit. Tony sculpted it, and Jay Davis, I think, sculpted the who was another Chris Wayless guy. This was again I don't know if we'd been done doing Gremlins yet, but Tony went on to sculpt the Gremlin. I mean, Chris designed it, but
Oh yeah,
Tony
yeah,
did
yeah.
the classic sculpt. So Tony was awesome. Judy Elkins was an animator who came in
Right,
and how was I guess had met with Chris or Phil. Chris had kind of put together the crew and then left,
right,
and most of the crew had not done this before. Or I would say
right,
most. Like Judy had been an animator. I was my first job. Dan Howard was a maintenance guy, like a facilities guy who would fix things and do that.
right.
Uh, Jeannie Loren Dan brought in, which was Dan's partner. They had made like Jeannie was a dancer and she would make costumes. So she
Mm,
kind of came in costume department, but worked on our side of it because we had to obviously build costumes. But
yeah,
they had not done creature movie stuff before.
right.
Um, Wesley had obviously working at Lucasfilm. Eben Stromquist came from, and Randy Dutra came from the Bronze Foundry sculpting world.
Wow.
Eben had made kind of big mechanical things. Stuart Ziff had come right off of Dragon Slayer, where he was more a mechanic. He did the go what they call it, the not the go motion. Isn't that what they
Yeah,
call it?
Go Motion was
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
the stepper motors that would blur
yeah.
during the frame. Yeah, so he was kind of Phil always called him the professor.
Huh.
So it was and then there was Dave Carson, Tommy Sanamon, who obviously had done this, Ken Ralston, who wasn't specifically in the shop, but he was kind of part time because he was busy being a effect supervisor. Patty Blau ran was like our point person, not a
Right,
creature maker. Tommy, Judy, Randy, Mark McCormick, who
right.
was old school puppeteer. He had come out of classic Punch and Judy puppetry that he had
Oh
done
wow.
in Albuquerque, and then he went over. He was part of the kind of the U.S. puppet thing. Went over to work on Dark Crystal and made a lot of the jewelry and stuff. He wasn't
Ooh.
much a puppet builder, but he built Size Noodles.
Oh wow. And that makes sense because she's got all the beads and stuff hanging
Yeah,
off,
yeah,
and it's
yeah. Well,
very
he built her as this big gangly, rod
yeah.
puppet.
That
Rod
was a brilliant way to perform that thing. The way they set that up with the
It was a
leg
hard
things.
puppet to do. I mean, it was like, how do we make this move? I mean, her body's the size of a beach ball, and then legs. Um, uh, I think that's everybody, right?
Yeah. When you closed your eyes to do that, were you picturing the shop and where everybody was standing
Yeah.
as you're counting
Oh,
heads?
yeah. Yes. Well, there's that group photo of everybody, and I was kind of going
Oh
through
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
I think there was a guy who came in later, Brian. I can't remember his last name.
Hmm.
Um, and he worked with us, but he came in like halfway through. Really nice guy. But it was a great. It was like a not amateur, but people who'd never done a creature shop thing before.
Yeah.
And that's because George didn't want to bring up expensive people from
Right.
LA because they would want a lot of money to, move up for a year and a half.
Right.
And Chris I think Chris Wayless and Phil to some extent, but I know Chris because I became best friends with him, just felt like, yeah, it's not rocket science. You can teach people, creative people. So he brought in all these people who had just had to work creative but had not been in creature shops. So
Hmm.
I think Phil was always a little on edge, going
It's
like,
one of those things, you can teach someone techniques. You can't teach the eye. If they have
right,
the eye, if they have the
right.
creative vision for something, if they know what makes a good monster, you can teach them how to work
Well,
the material.
that was really Phil and Tommy and Dave. They were the art directors. Nothing. It wasn't like we just got to do whatever we wanted. I mean,
Right.
George selected the thing, but then Phil ostensibly and pretty much in all aspects was the eye for the
Yeah.
creatures on Jedi. At least everything except the
And
Ewoks.
that's
Well, the
yeah,
Ewoks is a funny story because they sent over what Stewart had made way
uh-huh.
before we started shooting, and we looked at it, and it was basically a, a fake fur ball with two
Yeah.
vacuum formed eyes and like latex, lips with some plastic teeth
Yeah.
and ears, and we're like, oh my god, this is terrible. I mean, it just looked like a bad stuffed animal, right? And so Phil said, well, let's do like close up heads. Like
Right.
let's take like 5 or 6
You like
heads.
articulated, give them a
Right. So I think Dave sculpted it. I can't remember now. It's just kind of a blank head, with eyes and teeth and a mouth. And then we molded it and cast it, and then I punched the hair on it, painted it, and punched the hair, and we kind of made it look like it was sort of like a giant. I mean, what they are, a giant chipmunk, but it looked more
Right.
biologically uh, believable, I guess.
Yeah.
Remember, we showed it to George, and George was like, "This is again the kind of casual aspect." He's like, "No, we don't need to do that. I don't want them. That's not necessary. They're basically just going to be a group, and once in a while do a close up, but."
Right.
We'll have a couple hero heads that their Stewart's making, because we were just like, oh my god, and then we're shooting. I'm like, oh boy, Warwick Davis, to his credit, learned to like work his chin and like stick his tongue out and kind of got like,
Yeah.
whatever. And Jack Purvis and Mike Edmonds. I think Mike's the last one standing of all the chief Ewoks. And we're still friends on Facebook. He's a lovely guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I knew him from Time Bandits. He was Og, the big dumb one. He's like, I think I've got an idea in my head. And he called me the dude all the time. He's like, "Hey, dude," because I had long hair and I looked like way before Jeff Bridges was the dude. I looked like a surfer dude.
And you now grew into looking like
I
Jeff
grew
Bridges.
in it. Yeah, no, Jeff Bridges grew into looking like me, man. I was the original dude, man. Don't you, Walter? So yeah, so the Ewoks were fun, and then so after we built all the stuff and shipped it to London, which I didn't get to go to, I
Uh-huh.
did go to Brookings and Crescent City for like 2 months,
Uh-huh.
and Yuma, Arizona for 2 months to shoot. Well, we built the Sarlacc, and then did the whole shoot uh, for both of those locations. I was gone for almost like 5, 6 months.
Wow.
It was crazy. It was like joining the circus. And I
Yes.
go
Yeah.
dancing.
Yeah.
Like Carrie Fisher was, on fire. She was like 28. And
Yeah.
so we'd go out dancing, and she'd go with the crew, a bunch of stuntmen and me, and we'd go out to bars and go wherever you could find dancing in
In
Yuma,
Arizona.
Arizona. Yeah. Well, and the drinking age there was 18, so we'd cross the border into Arizona, and I could go to the bar and have a drink. So, yeah, I can say I went dancing with Carrie Fisher and hung out with Mark Hamill. With his son was Nathan, was literally I think born. We're all in this like big Holiday Inn. There was not a grand hotel. Maybe Harrison
Right.
was a fancier place, but barely said hi to Harrison.
Hmm.
But I made very good friends with his makeup artist, Peter Rob King, who I
Uh-huh.
found out while we're shooting did the makeup on Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh, wow.
A huge fan of, and Peter and I stayed friends. Well, still friends now. I mean, that whole experience. There was a movie called My Favorite Year, which is about
Hmm.
essentially kind of like Mel Brooks. It's not his story, but a guy who's a young comedy writer, like an assistant writer, who works on the Sid Caesar show, which is called in the movie, it's called the King Kaiser comedy cavalcade. Peter O'Toole plays essentially Errol Flynn plays like this
Yes.
drinking, womanizing guest star who gets drunk and is kind of chaos on the set. But it's about this guy's 1 year where he got to work on the show, and I'm like, oh my god, I need to do that for
That
Star
too
Wars.
were
It's like
favorite year.
I always want to call it. I was a teenage Jedi crew member.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it was amazing. It was, I mean, yeah, people still are like, how the hell did you, like, what was it like? It was amazing. It was, I was just giddy all the time and happy, and everyone was lovely. There weren't any, I remember I pretty much did impressions of everybody.
Right.
Stuart Ziff had the lateral lisp, and he was like, I'm just a doink ball doing the thing. And um, yeah, Richard Marquand. So I do an impression of him. He'd be like, okay, Mark. And he was very like a dancer almost. He'd be like, and then George would just be like, um, just kind of standing there, kind of watching. I remember I've told this story, but Kit West had put together this. It was crazy. It was a Chevy engine, gas powered Chevy engine to run this tentacle that was going to be the thing that
Oh.
comes up and wraps around, comes out of the Sarlacc pit and grabs the Lando's leg. And
Uh-huh.
it was like Kit was either British or Australian. He was like, big guy, all right, George, I'm going to show you this. And so they got this thing out there, and they're like, and it's noisy and smoky, and he's got like four guys on this tentacle, and it's like going like this. And George kind of watched it for a minute, and they said, "All right, I thought we were just going to do the rubber tentacle. Can you like turn to Phil? Can you just make me a rubber tentacle about 8 feet long?" And I was just going to wrap it around his leg and shoot it in reverse. So I go, it's like, oh, yeah, oh, man, you can do that. And then George goes, "How much did you spend on?" So I was like, wow, yeah. And so you just, yeah, George was like every way to save a buck and not do it cheaply, but like, why
Yeah.
spend money if you don't have to?
And I mean, and the final shot works, and
Oh, it's
Billy
great.
D. Williams gives one of the greatest movie yells of all time in that scene too. That yeah, it's so good.
It should be the new Wilhelm scream, the
It,
D
it really
Wilhelm.
could be. Yeah, it is right up there. So two things. One, I want to talk about you puppeteered Salacious Crumb for one of the
Yes,
great documentaries.
yes.
What, speaking of Billy D. Williams, because that was your co-star.
Yeah,
Talk
yeah.
about that a little bit. How did that happen?
Well, again, it was just the right place, right time. I was there, and they were going to shoot this doc, and they said, "Hey, we need someone to." And I was the only one who'd done some puppeteering, just as a kid. And they go, "Hey, can you?" Because Tony didn't want to do, nobody else wanted to do it. I think Mike McCormick probably could have done it, but he'd left, and I could do the laugh. They said, "Hey, would you, hide in this box and puppeteer Salacious?" It's not for me. It's not right. It actually got me the Gremlins job.
Oh, funny.
With the guy who actually, it's a long story, but Mark Dodson
Yeah.
worked at Lucasfilm. He was a carpenter, and he did Salacious, and he and I
Right.
became friends. And then he did Gremlins, and I did Gremlins 2 with him. Anyway, yeah, so it was just there, and Billy was. I mean, we shot it in about. They were in the creature shop, and remember we had a couple people in pig guard costumes. They kind of
Uh-huh.
walked through like they're all getting into the crates. I just hid either behind a crate or in a crate. They cut a hole and I put my arm in it and just watched and went, ah! I mean, it was literally over in half an hour, but I got a great picture with Billy D. He was very sweet.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, it was just, again, that's kind of standing around being there is like, hey, kid, hey,
Yeah,
kid,
yeah,
I'm going
yeah.
to put this on your arm and you can do the laugh. I'm like, okay. Yeah, why would I say no? Um,
Exactly. You,
and
you
again, no one wanted to do it. I was the big ham. I
and
know you're shocked.
not anymore. This is a shock
No,
to
no, now I'm
you.
very shy and retired. Yeah,
Yeah,
you can
it's just
tell.
so demure. You drifted into talking a little bit about illustrating before and how you didn't have the patience for it. So I'm going to thank you for having enough patience to draw little sketches for all of our fans that are picking up the Apple Slug
Well,
edition.
you know what
Um,
I'll say is Ken Ralston is an amazing artist. I mean, just one of those. All those guys were pretty amazing artists. But Ken would do these great. In fact, one of my treasured things from that era was my so long card because when Jedi was over, it's like you get let go, and then 2 months later they hire you back to do Star Trek 2 and 3 and everything
right.
else.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I have a card signed by everyone there with a caricature of me wearing my Greek fisherman's hat, which you see in the documentary,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm covered in goo and it's dripping off my hair, which was absolutely accurate. And it says like "Bye bye goof." And I got this big idiot grin because that was me at the time. But Ken had this loose style that was very, and he and I would talk about comic book artists. He had turned me on to Comic Profiles, which was not a fanzine, but a put out by the Caps, the cartoon artists like group of America or something. And so we would talk about our favorite cartoonists, and I think we both were big fans of Al Cap and Walt Frazetta, who did cartoon work or his ink work, but Jack Davis. We both loved Jack
Oh,
Davis,
yeah. Yeah.
and so we would talk about that. But he had that kind of looser style, which I really liked, and because I just again don't have the patience, so I think I'm channeling a little bit of Ken Ralston's kind of looseness with like, hey, it's about the energy of it, not like this perfect. Again, I always say I'm a designer, not an illustrator. Designer's like, what's the idea? I mean, you look at Jim
Yeah.
Henson's designs for Beaker, and it's like two
Oh,
eyeballs, and that's Beaker.
but it's Beaker. Yeah, it's him.
Right. So again, it takes the pressure off of doing like this thing you're going to hang in a gallery and just be like, what's the idea? So the sketches I did were really fun because I was thinking about it because I couldn't just draw that guy 50 times
Right.
because so I thought of gags like because to me he was based. I mean, two of my characters were gags. So
Yeah.
I'm like, well, what are the gags? So the people will see there's a lot of silly things because I'm like, well, again, then I really realized he's like Slimer because
Yeah.
he's very animated because he's a moment in time. He's not just a head, and that was my concept for the piece in general. So it was kind of fun to go, oh wow, now I can think of all these. So again, he kind of there's a couple where he's getting pulled up by balloons, and I did a bunch of dark Jedi ones where he's got a lightsaber, which made me laugh, and one where he's got blast helmet on, like he's
Yeah.
doing the. I stole a
There's
bunch of.
definitely like he's a chef, I think, in one of
Yeah, there's one
his
where he's a chef with an Ewok head on a platter. Yeah, so it was actually kind of a blast because at first I'm like, oh my God, this is a chore. I mean, I haven't drawn that much.
Yeah.
Geez, probably since I was a storyboard artist on Gremlins. We're just cranking
Yeah.
out board gags. But it was really fun, and they're loose, but also it was about the energy and the gag and kind of selling the idea. And they're also tiny. I don't usually draw that small, so it was
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that was
Yeah,
an
we set the
exercise.
precedent of the small thing, and sometimes I do wish we went a little bigger, just knowing how
Yeah,
I
like a
like
three
to
by
draw.
five card would have given me a
Yeah,
little more room. But
yeah, yeah.
so, and again, I'm a lefty, so I'm like trying
Oh
not to
gosh.
smear. Yeah, yeah. But yeah.
It's very like Mark Davis, you know. It's like you captured
Mark Davis. Oh,
it.
that was the other artist. Yeah, Jack Davis and Mark Davis.
Yeah,
Huge influence on me. Bill Pete, a number of the Disney stories, but Mark Davis in particular. Again, kind of a looser line, much better at anatomy than I am, but great at gags. Like,
yeah,
what's the and also the character, everything. And since then, like when I did dinosaurs and Gremlins and stuff, I was like, what is the personality that's coming through? And again, dinosaurs really let me do that because it
yeah.
wasn't.
That quick read on those dinosaurs, man.
Yeah, well, because it wasn't realistic in the way of like, oh, it looks like it's going to eat you. It's more like
Right.
their personalities for a show. So I've always, and I think that's how why Jim Henson hired me. He liked that my ideas had personality. They weren't just a concept drawing.
Mm.
So yeah, hopefully the people get a kick out of again. Like I didn't do because I was looking at what Chris and some of the other guys and they're beautiful like watercolor renderings. I'm like, oh my
Oh,
God.
Dave Carson did these
Oh,
full-on little paintings. It's like, oh wow.
yes, that's what I mean. Yeah, those guys. Well, it's funny, Dave Carson. So as a kid, I bought a Ray Harryhausen portfolio, and it's 12 black and white sketches that Dave Carson did when he was like 20. And I had it, and I was going through my stuff, and I said, Dave, I think I emailed him and said, I found your portfolio that I bought in like 1977
Oh my
in
gosh.
Hollywood. And I said, I feel like I want to return it to you, even though I probably could sell it for, I don't know. It wasn't about the money. It was about just,
Yeah.
I love Dave, and it was such a
Oh
great
yeah.
thing. And so, yeah, I gave it back to him at the last Star Wars reunion or Jedi reunion.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's so
Be-
weird.
Before we say bye bye goof,
So
which
long
is
goof. I think it was so long goof.
so
Yeah,
long goof. Sorry, that's just the only way I'm gonna
yeah,
refer you
so
from
long
now
goof.
on. When it comes to um, we're in this crazy transition period over the last obviously 30, 40 years with CG and now AI coming into the mix. Yet somehow practical creature stuff still endures. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think the first half of it is most of it's practical. It's there, it's real, it has a presence. CG is getting really good at making things look, I would say, realistic, but not real, if that
Mm,
makes sense. Whereas, the Rancor was even when it was a little puppet. People who aren't Star Wars fans. I blow their minds. Say, the Rancor monster was the size of Kermit the Frog. They're like, what? I said, literally, it's just from your elbow to your hand. That was him with little rods. And like, no. I'm like, so. But that physicality, even when you scale it up, 20
yeah,
times, it still has a presence to it that, again, one thing we all look at every day is reality. And as good as CGI gets, and it's getting really good. I mean, sorry, AI, which is really CGI, I guess.
yeah,
Uh, it doesn't. It still there's that uncanny valley of reality. And again, the closer, what is that thing? The closer you get to something, if you keep dividing, you never actually get there.
yeah.
And so I'm
And the
sure in
more
5 years,
unsettling it gets as you get
right?
closer.
I'm sure in 5 years you could probably make a movie that looks like Star Wars with the same characters,
Yeah,
and it'll look absolutely like Star Wars. Whether we buy it or not, I don't know.
yeah.
But I think the physicality of these things
Mm,
translates into our brains. You go, that's a real thing. I mean,
yeah,
I'm trying to think. Well, also when there's personality, like Jurassic Park was amazing. It still
yeah,
looks great. But they were big, scary. They're kaiju. They're kind of monsters that
yeah,
chase you. Once you get into personality or acting, then I think that's where the physicality comes in, and also the other side of it. If they're working with actors, then the actor has something to play against, as
Yeah.
opposed to, Sam Jackson's complaint is like, George, just look over there and look scared. It's like, all right.
Yeah, you have that bonus, that free stuff that just comes from something being there.
Right. And
Yeah.
also the free stuff, what Jim used to call it free animation, where like in the
Oh yeah.
Muppet world, be like feathers and hair and stuff like that would bounce around, and then they go, "Oh my gosh, if we make this feathers like his antenna, then it adds all." And then the puppeteer starts. So there's a kind of a waterfall effect of
Yeah.
puppeteering, or even in a costume, of the verisimilitude and reality of that moves real, and the secondary stuff you don't think about happens. But again, I think it just comes down to, we look at reality every day, and that's why. Uh, when it's something that isn't real, in terms of
And
like,
it just triggers something where it's like,
it makes it more real. I've
yeah.
always said the goofier the concept, the more you have to cleave to reality. Whereas the more banal it is, you can get a little crazier,
Hmm.
because you're not trying to sell it. But if it's this wild idea, that's why Phil Tippett's designs work so well, because they look like, the dragons look like real dragons.
Yeah.
Even the weird creatures that come out of the swamp, it looks like like there's a reality to it. And
Yeah.
then in the design, and then the physicality of it, I think just kind of knocks it out of the park. At least that's me trying to sound smart about something stupid. Why,
Well, I
why do,
I
why do
think
rubber monsters? Why do we still like them?
I think you did a very good job of trying to sound smart.
Trying to
You
sound
convinced
smart.
me.
Good.
Hopefully, we fooled some people at home too.
Yeah, exactly.
I think this is a great place to wrap this up. I just thank you for being a part of this edition
Thank you.
and just helping us do the research on all of these great maquettes over the years
Yeah. Well,
too.
it's
And
fun to because I don't like sit around and think about my first 5 years in the business, but
yeah.
it's fun to go back. And again, I'm a visual thinker, so I'm remembering, like I say, my life in my mind is little gifs, like little short animated segments where I was here at the sculpting table, or I was here,
Mm.
talking to Dave, or in the mold room with Wesley, or having lunch with Phil and Randy. And so all these little clips, George walking through, putting the things on, like I remember them like little movies in my head. So it's fun. And then, yeah, helping to figure out who did the maquettes.
Yeah.
Like I think the ET one was Dave Carson, actually, the one that,
Yes.
not ET, but
Oh,
from
well,
Close Encounters. Wasn't that Dave?
yes. That was Dave. That looks, yeah, the light
It
man.
looked like, yeah,
The standing, he's got his arm out. Yeah. And
yeah, like
then everybody thought that Tom Sannemon's prune face was based on ET, but this was before ET even was a
right,
thing.
yeah.
So,
Oh, I
just
remember.
that
I
other,
have
like,
a
just the
quick
idea
peek to
was out
maybe
there, like
one
you
of the
with
things I got.
Slimer.
Right, one of the things I got to do was paint ET, because I was the creature painter at Lucasfilm. So I get a call, hey, Spielberg's doing this movie and they want to bring you down to paint some creature skins. I'm like, okay, what is it? We can't tell you. Okay, so they fly me down to LA. I stay at my folks' house, and I
Uh-huh.
go to this small studio in Hollywood, and there's Carlo Rambaldi with this big stupid alien standing there, like in a T pose, we would call it,
Uh-huh.
and he had a bunch of skins that he needed painted, and the paint job was what we used to call noodling. It was just like 3 or 4 colors on a base, just kind of all noodled around, because the sculpt didn't have a lot of texture. I took him to my parents' house. I painted him. I took some pictures. Of course, the pictures didn't come out because I painted him. I brought him back on Monday because it was a weekend gig, and I flew back to Lucasfilm. So anyway, great talking to you about all this stuff that I
Of
don't
course.
think about most of the time.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think
Thank you for bringing all this stuff to life. I mean, it's
uh,
so cool that I get 10 of the copies of my
I'm
maquette. And
20, isn't it?
yeah,
I thought that,
yeah.
let
Well,
me check
20,
the
but I
contract
figured
here.
I'm not going to be greedy, so I just
Yeah.
take the 10. I'm going to wait 5 years and sell them for $5,000 with
Sure. Yeah.
with my
Just watch
fingerprint.
watch the next auction house. Now,
I do get one though, right? I do get one.
yes, absolutely. It's yeah, they're in the works. It is really cool. This is one that that Apple Slug people have been asking for. Like you said, he was shown on the Smithsonian cover. He was shown in one of the behind the scenes books. The
Oh,
best
really? Okay.
archives
I
book,
didn't
I
even
think,
know that.
has him. Um,
Who named him Apple Slug? Because he didn't have a name, because he wasn't
I
pictured.
don't know. It's that way in the archive system, and it's been that way in all the books and stuff. So
So
maybe that's
George named him. I don't know.
maybe, but but it's nice. I mean, it's really cool that we can pull this stuff, pluck it out of obscurity, and put it in
Yeah.
collectors' hands. And
Well,
I love that our collectors love the weirdos.
yeah.
Whether that's us or the stuff we make.
Right. Well, and this is going to be great because I know that all the female fans are going to want to meet me now because of
That,
Muppets.
of course, yes,
You know,
yes, yeah.
I'm going to have to get security.
That's right. Yeah, stay
Well,
back.
I'll see you in 5 years when you're doing Tank Boy. I don't know if he hasn't
That's right. Yes, garbage
or
pail guy or whatever.
Garbage Pail Guy or Hole in Head. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You never
Thanks.
know.
You never know. Collect all 90 of them.
That's it. Look, I mean, you want to talk about a dream. That's me. Every time I go to the archives and I look at that shelf with all of them laid out, it's like a checklist in
Now,
my mind. It's like, got it, need it, need it.
The archives at
At the ranch. Yes.
Next time you go, bring me along, and I can be a witness to like.
I mean, we'll need a research partner. Yeah, I should.
Yeah.
I
mean, because I'll
definitely-
probably remember stuff looking at it, going, "Oh my god,
That's a good idea. We should do this. I'm sure other people watching are going to volunteer as well. Like, hey, if you need someone to carry stuff,
get Chris Wallace and I."
I think this sounds like a great plan. I will let you know the next time we're going. I'm looking forward to this. Everybody who saw this verbal contract, this is happening.
And we'll do a documentary about like 45 years later.
That's right. That's right. Uncovering the mystery of the Maquettes.
It would literally be 45 years later.
Yeah, that's
we
it.
Did it next year. Yeah, that's crazy.
Wow.
All
Well,
right, buddy.
Thank you so much. This was a blast.
You.
I look forward to chatting with you soon and seeing you at the
Always
All right.
a pleasure. Thank y'all.